Okay, so on this video, we are going to talk about patterns. This is the information that is important. So you have your brand name, what the pattern is. This here, and I'll show you why in a second, is all the sizes that are in this whole pattern piece that you cut out from the really large sheet. So since this is a pajama suit for baby, I found his size, and I'll tell you all about that later. And I went on the big sheet and I cut on that size line. So then this also is going to tell you which piece it is. So this is the back of view B. And this is the pattern number, or the piece number. And I'll talk about that in a sec. So this information is the most important information on the entire thing. So this tells you how many to cut. So this is a cut one on fold. And we will talk about what that means. So just some other information that is on the pattern itself. So here you'll see dots. So I'm cutting out size large. This is the only dot I need to know about, right? Because there's the L. Need to do that one. So I will mark where that is on my fabric. Over here, these are your notches. Feel free to cut that triangle out. I think that's stupid. I just lift this up and I make a pin mark. And I'll also show you that probably in a different video. These are really just references. So if you skip them, it's seriously not a big deal. A lot of these notches the whole point is to tell you which piece goes to which piece. This is a fun fact. So if you have a skirt, or in this case, like pajamas, if this back piece was more than one piece, like say there's a seam right here, this side connects to the front, so it has one notch. If this piece was a seam, it would have two triangles. So that would tell me, the two notches would say, okay, that's the back seam, this is the front seam. So they do have a purpose, but they are references. A lot of times in sewing patterns, it will tell you to match your notches, sew between the notches or something like that. So the other relevant piece of information on this pattern piece is these lines right here. These are typically alteration lines. So if I needed to make this longer or even shorter, you cut here and adjust as needed. If you were making it larger, you would maybe just get a piece of like printer paper and just like fill in that gap. Or you just say, screw that, and you cut it and you just measure up. That's kind of what I do. I don't take the time. The other most important marking on this pattern piece is this line right here. See that? It's got the triangle. And it was a bracket, comes all the way down, and another triangle. This is a universal pattern symbol, that this is the side that goes on the fold, okay? And I'm going to do a different video on that, because this is this is a complicated concept. So anyway, so this is the side. This is the side that you do on the fold. You don't do it on this side. You do it on this side. So this is a really important one to know. This is also on clothing primarily. So if you're doing any homemaking, it doesn't, or home, like pillows and curtains and things, this is probably not going to be anything you see. So on this pattern piece, remember while I said this was important, right? Because these are all the sizes that are included. within this piece. So you just pick your size and cut. This piece is not like that. So when you have your big sheet and you're cutting all your pieces out, this piece is only for the size large. So all the extra small, medium, extra large, those were all separate. And so I was cutting out large, so I only cut off the large. So this is another important thing to know as well. So you have what the pattern piece is for view D, cut 2. We will also talk about that probably when we talk about the fold video. This line, this is another universal symbol on virtually every single pattern piece. This is your grain line. And the grain line goes with the selvage edge. So what is the selvage edge? It is this right chunk. This. On the edge of your fabric, you have a finished side, right? Your edges are finished. This is not your selvage. This is your selvage right here. Not that. This. The machine finished edge. So the grain line on this fabric runs parallel with the selvage. So how does that work? So on this fabric, putting this pattern piece on here, I would take this line and I would get it as parallel as possible to the finished edge. Okay? Now, when you have something on the fold, that is your grain line. Okay? You put this edge parallel with your selvage edge. Okay? It's not marked the same way as this. Okay, but this is your grain line. Your fold line is your grain line. And so, believe it or not, there are pattern pieces that have a weird looking grain line, right? So this is the pattern piece for this. Look at this grain line. It's like kind of off. So when I put this on the pattern, on this fabric, right, it's going to kind of do something like this, right? It's going to kind of like be a little awkward on there. And the reason for this, the reason why your grain line is so important is because your fabric doesn't stretch this way, right? This is the strongest grain. It doesn't have any give. So when you cut this piece out, it's not going to warp. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to start like stretching out on you and like bubbling and all this other stuff. It's a very strong weave. Okay. Now, there is something called bias. Bias is where your grain line is cut 45 degrees from the selvage. This is the most stretchy your fabric can get. We'll have to do a video on bias because it's wild. So it makes your fabric very stretchy. And that has uses, but not for the sole of an infant's booty. I want it to be very strong, very straight. Now, you can cut things on the cross grain. So that's the cross grain. So it's going to be perpendicular to the selvage edge. It's also a pretty strong weave. It's not like bias. It's not going to stretch and stuff as much, but it does have a little bit more give to it. And for cottons and things like this is just like this is fleece. So this doesn't matter, but on some fabrics it really does matter about cross grain. So on the cottons and things, you can cut things on the cross grain, it's not a big deal. But it's always good practice just to go ahead and always cut things on grain, so parallel to the selvage edge, unless told otherwise. Now, if you were doing something like trying to like squeeze a piece on, just do it either on the cross grain, so perpendicular, or on grain. Doing something where it's kind of like half is not good. It's just going to warp and stretch out of position and completely ruin your project. Okay, so that's grain lines. Oh, and I should also mention all of these little dots you should probably mark, because the pattern will say something like gather between small dot and large dot. And so like if you don't know where the small dot is and the large dot is, you ain't gonna know how to do it. Also here, we talked about all patterns have built-in 5/8 seam allowance into them. This one does not, so it's letting you know that this only has a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. This piece does not have that written anywhere. So that just means that this pattern piece will have 5/8 seam allowance, which is the number 5 line on your sewing machine. So the lines on your sewing machine are going to be 5/8, 4/8, 3/8. Maybe like you'll have like a 6/8 or a 7/8 or something like that. So that's how you'll know where to sew. Let's talk real quickly about what's in your pattern booklet. So obviously it has like suggested layouts and like how to sew, but this stuff's the most important information. So this is the nightgown. Obviously I have a boy, so I didn't want to have this, so I switched this up a little bit. So I wanted to do view A yoke with view B pants. So, and then everything has view C, D, whatever. Over here, it shows you what all the pattern pieces look like, so you can find them. And then they're the numbers, right? So 12, where's 12 at? 12's right here, okay? And then that looks like that. So down here, it's going to tell you what's what. So like I said, I wanted to do view A yoke, so I just marked it so I'd know. So number 1, I need a piece number 1, number 3, number 5, and then I need a piece number 10, 11, and 12. So now I know what they look like, so when I open that big old packet of like this huge tissue paper, I know what I'm looking for, and I know what all the shapes are. So then, yeah, so inside, it's going to show you step by step by step what to do. So let's just turn this around. So this is just general information. This is going to be your key, so you know what the colors mean. And then you can read through this, whatever you want to do. But so each thing is going to have, so gown A, so view A, and then it's going to go through how to make it. Then you have B, so then it'll go through like how to make that. So you if you're making clothes, sometimes you have to flip through this whole big mess just to find like what the one thing you wanted to make. Also has them in different languages. So pretty much that's all the information you need to know what's in the packet. But what's on the back of a of a pattern? So this is my pattern, okay? And then up top it tells you what sizes, right? Baby's not that big, so I knew I didn't need, you know, a larger size. So this stuff is really important on the back. So when you're at the store, certain things you need to look for, right? So here, on the back, it says, you know, you have your body measurements, but, you know, this is a child. So, you know, age, weight, height, and then you can kind of figure out which one to get. For adults, a lot of times sizing will be done by chest size, waist size, hip size, things like that. And don't ever go with just like, oh, I'm always a size 4. Don't do that. Measure your waist and pick the one, even if it's a size 25. Because then you're going to have better results because it will be something that actually fits you. So up here is going to tell you the types of suggested fabrics. So for all the, so for view A, C, and whatnot. Notions, these are going to be things like, okay, for, like this says, for view A, you're going to need some buttons. You're going to need, elastic, for the jumpsuit. You're going to need some snap tape, you know, eyelets and eyelet lace. For the booties, you're going to need elastic and bias tape. So this just kind of tells you what you need to actually make the garment. So then here is going to be your sizes. You know, baby, he's kind of big, so large is 12 months. And then you just kind of follow this all the way down, right? So this is going to tell you how, so this is 60-inch fabric. Most fabric that's at the store is 44. So I don't know why this says 60-inch, but anyway. So this is going to tell you how much of 60-inch fabric that you need to buy. Okay, so you need 1 yard. But because the places around here only sell 44-inch fabric, you'd probably need, I think I got like 2.5 just to be safe. So same thing for all of this. So contrast flower, you're going to need half a yard of 45-inch fabric, and so forth and so forth. So it just tells you how much yardage to get. And then so this is finished garment measurement. Most patterns have this. This is where I'm talking about. You're going to, you got to go by like your measurements. So sometimes you can be like, oh no, like, you know, I'm a 30-inch waist and I've actually got to make a large instead. So this can kind of help you kind of triangulate which size to make. Again, this is for clothes. If you were doing like a pillow or curtains or something, it would probably just tell you how much you need. Yeah, so, and then here's another interesting thing that I'm really just now learning about. Which way is it? So this is called pick a knit rule. So if you were to buy knit fabrics, so knit fabrics are very, very, very stretchy. So you take a piece of the fabric that is this long and you stretch it to this line. Okay. And that's how you know if your fabric is stretchy enough. This comes in handy, especially when you're making clothing that needs to be stretchy. So remember I was telling you I was trying to make leggings. My fabric was too stretchy. And I didn't realize it because I'd never seen this before or used it, but this is how you can tell at the fabric store if your fabric is stretchy enough. Or if it stretches too much, right? If it stretches way out here, you don't want to get that knit or that spandex. You want to get the one that fits, okay? I also don't really understand that too much. So anyway, okay, so that is patterns. We'll make another video.